Make them understand, make them understand. Every time we meet, baby, as we walk down the street, baby, the people stop.
In the British pop music boom of the 1960s, the city of Birmingham always played second fiddle to Liverpool and London. Yet it was to produce some of the most successful British pop groups of the last 3 decades. This is the story of just some of those groups and the musicians in them. Back in the early 60s, Birmingham could boast hundreds of bands playing in pubs, clubs and dance halls throughout the city and its suburbs. There was plenty of work to go around, and if one band fell apart for whatever reason, a good musician could usually find somewhere else to play.
An advert came in the Birmingham Mail for guitarist wanted with a Fender Strat, Vox amp and Binson Echo, and I had the lot.
I remember I got 10 bob each for it. I couldn't believe it. We'd been playing, which was just all I ever wanted to do was just play drums. And at the end of the night, someone actually gave me a 10-shilling note.
I only did not have to go to work. It meant I didn't have to get up or anything, and we had practice all afternoon. My mum couldn't believe it. It's like she'd come up and try and get me up and say, "Come on, get out of bed." I said, "Listen, Mum, I don't have to get up ever again. I'm going to be a musician."
The story of this family tree begins in 1964, when 2 local musicians with more ambition than most had the idea of assembling the best of local talent in one band.
Mike Pinder and Ray Thomas had just come back from Germany and came and saw me in a club one night and said, "Do you want to join a band?" I said, "I've already got a band, thank you." I said, "Well, we want to get going and get a band." And these are the first people I'd met who were older than me, who wanted to do what I wanted to do. Go to London, do it, So I said, yeah, for sure.
The band needed some money if they were going to make it. Someone suggested approaching Mitchell and Butlers, the local brewery which owned the pubs the band gigged in.
We were introduced to someone from the brewery, and they said, "Well, you can call yourself, if you want our money, you can call yourselves the M&B5." That was the original thing, which we thought, get out of here, So, but we thought about it, and then we thought, well, if we're going to call ourselves the M&B, let's call it the Moody Blues. That sounds better, which is what we did. But we never did end up going with the brewery.
Instead, they teamed up with an energetic young manager by the name of Tony Secunda, who persuaded them he could deliver the success they so much wanted.
Looking back, he comes under the category of what you'd call a lovable rogue. But then he just appeared and said he was going to buy us all this equipment, and we said, yeah. And turned up a week later with a new van with all the equipment in the back. So back then, I suppose he was a bit like Moses to me.
With Secunda looking after business, the Moodies felt ready to have a crack at the big time and made the move down to London.
We recorded our first song, which was called Lose Your Money, which everybody did. And then the second song we recorded was Go Now, and by January the 15th, it was #1 in Britain from May. So I mean, the whole thing was like I imagine skiing down a mountain. I've never skied, but I imagine something like that. It starts off real nice and it gets faster and faster and faster.
We've already said I don't
Back in Birmingham, not everyone was celebrating the Moody's Christmas success. Bev Bevan had once played drums in Denny Lane and the Diplomats. He found it hard now to be generous to his former colleague.
I'd had to go and get myself a job just to pay the HP payments on my drums as a furniture salesman at this rather snooty store in Keen and Scott in Birmingham. And it wasn't at all, I didn't get a rock and roll image at all, you know. But I had to do it because I needed some money. But in my mind, it was not forever. It was just a part-time thing until something else came along. But at that Christmas, I remember Denny by this time I was with the Moody Blues, and he was on the Christmas Top of the Pops doing Go Now. And he was like, you know, it was a #1 record. He got all the Top of the Pops dancers and stuff around him, and I was just at home, and I mean, all I got to look forward to were the January sales, you know, at the store.
I never thought it could happen to me, girl.
Bev quit the furniture store and joined Carl Wayne and the Vikings. But it soon dawned on him that this was just another local band going nowhere.
By 66, I was like 21, and we were thinking that we're virtually past it, really. You know, we're too old now to make it. We've got one last chance, really. And so Carl Wayne and myself and Ace Kefford, who was also in Carl Wayne and the Vikings, we were in like secret negotiations, mainly at a place called Alex's Pie Stand in Birmingham, which is a brilliant place. And he's right by the Albany Hotel. It's a load of advertising hoardings now, a little car park, but it's where all the groups met up. There were literally hundreds of bands in Birmingham at this time. And whenever you'd played in and around Birmingham, you'd meet up at this place, Alex's Pie Stand, for a hot pie and a hot dog and a cup of tea.
Ace Kefford and me one night were talking. We said, wouldn't it be a good idea, you know, if we got all the youngest guys out of each of the top bands and put them in one band. We talked to Roy about it, all in secret. He was up for the idea. And then Carl and Bev were in the Vikings with Ace. And we had a meeting at Roy's house one day. And we decided to form a band, and there was a knock on the door. And Mike Sheridan's there, whose band Roy was in at the time. What's going on here then? With Roger, his drummer.
Went in the flat and Fred, his dad, hello, Roger, how you doing? Cup of tea. And there sat The Move, virtually, you know, all the members that were to become The Move. And I said, oh, hello, lads, very naive. What are you doing here? Oh, we just come to listen to some of Roy's songs. Oh, great, cup of tea, coffee, and went. Never thought about it.
And Roy said, I'm leaving the group. And we were just gobsmacked, because he was such an integral part of our band. And we said, well, I said to him, what are you going to do? He said, well, we're forming a new group. We formed a new group, and we're going to do that, you know. And I said, well, what's that called then? He says, The Move. And we all fell about laughing. I mean, we all thought it was such a stupid name, you know, The Move. But like thinking back, I mean, that's exactly what they did. The Move. It was a big move for everyone, you know, concerned.
We knew as soon as we got together, the first rehearsal, we knew we were going to make it. We knew how good it was. And knocked the shit out of everybody in town. Everybody knew. It's just a matter of time and how.
While The Move felt they were on the verge of great things, the Moody Blues were finding out that one-hit single was not an automatic guarantee to success.
Being a little bit older than me, I suppose they're a little bit more, you know, sensible. They thought, hey, we've got a band, we've got a name, you know, let's stick with it until, you know, make the most of what we got. I was willing to sort of sacrifice that and say, right, I'll start again if I have to, but I don't want to do this, you know. I just want to go on to bigger and better things. Whether I did or not is, you know, it's a matter of opinion.
Then he got this idea of, you know, the electric band it was called, wasn't it? He wanted to work with some violinists with pickups. But basically he wanted his name out the front, Denny Lane and the Somethings. As he always was with Denny Lane and the Diplomats. I don't think he enjoyed being one of the Moody Blues.
Denny drifted off into solo work, leaving the Moody Blues to start all over again. In the meantime, their old manager, Tony Secunda, had taken up with The Move, and as with the Moodies, he set about modelling them into pop stars.
Listen to the spades far behind. There's things you hear
gave us this gangster image to start with. He booked, you know, got us into this a tailor's in London. We had all these gangster suits made, and he wanted us also to have our hair sort of all coming over one eye. You know, it was all very Chelsea set sort of thing. Because we were like lads from Birmingham, right? What's you doing, this bloke? You know.
I always found him exciting. I think, you know, like Malcolm McLaren was the 80s version of Tony Secunda. And I think he's like, he read Secunda's book, you know, what he did with the Pistols. It was the same thing. He never knew what was going to happen with him, anywhere. You know, it could be just explode into madness at any time.
And it was a British group, The Move, who on the third night effectively closed the festival, 4 days early.
And it was all that, you know, as long as you could get in the tabloids every day, it was starting to happen. It'd be more than just a band with hits, you know.
Yeah, the equipment packed up before we could do it all, you know, otherwise I think the stadium would have been full now, smoke and all that would have been blown up, you know. We're going to blow it up. It's still wired up, so don't go up there, whatever you do.
Secunda's flair for publicity was matched by Roy Wood's songwriting talents. The first 4 singles all made the top 5.
The first record that we had released was Night of Fear, and that just went straight in and ended up being, it was number 2. And the second record was Like Any the Grass Grow, which was number 5. And I still hadn't got a publishing deal. So Tony Secunda took me to, this is what it was like in those days. Tony Secunda took me to Essex Music in London, and they signed me, and I was happy to have a publishing deal or whatever. And I'd had 2 top 5 records, and you know how much they gave me? 200 quid. They gave me 200 quid to sign. And Tony Secunda said, well, what do you want? You know, I said, well, I would have liked enough to buy a tape recorder so that I could record my songs in my bedroom, you know. And I didn't even get that much.
In the morning, she just took me by surprise. She set the place afire. You've been fascinated by her. We're gonna get the fire brigade, get the fire brigade. See the building start to really burn. Get the fire brigade, get the fire brigade. If you're drunk, you've got to wait your turn. The lights across the street throw a rainbow. To meet her, I'll be there, notice that my eyes.
We've gone from being gangsters to all these hippies with beads and smelling flowers and incense. Trevor and Ace Kefford, they were really into it, you know, because I was a bit of a rocker, if anything, and I quite liked being the gangster. But I said, I don't want to wear a bloody caftan, you know.
Secunda, even by his high standards, surpassed himself on getting publicity for the Move's next single, Flowers in the Rain. But it wasn't the sort of publicity the band were after.
One night we were down south playing somewhere, and we came out the gig, and it was like being Elizabeth Taylor or something, you know, it's like 1,000 flashbulbs and everybody's there. And I said, what's happening? Like, don't you know, like, the Prime Minister's suing you? I said, what? You know, so we go back to London, we go around to Tony's place. He said, oh yeah, I sent him this postcard. So, oh yeah. We didn't know what was on it, right? And then he went out and bought all the newspapers, like about 4 in the morning, put them all on the floor. It was the front page of every newspaper in the world, you know, and he went, there you go.
Wilson to sue pop group, you know. Why? What have we done, you know? And because he'd issued this, he'd had this postcard drawn up of Harold Wilson in a compromising pose with his secretary and all that sort of stuff, and we didn't know. And he made sure one was posted through number 10 Downing Street. I mean, he'd only had about 200 printed, but he'd made sure they'd gone to all the right people. And of course, he got huge publicity. But I think he backfired on him because we were scared, really.
reaching for, I couldn't stand it anymore. So many girls upon my idle down. I'm just sitting watching flowers in the rain. Feel the power of the rain, making the garden grow. I'm just sitting watching flowers in the rain. Feel the power of the rain, keeping me cool.
By the following week, we were up in the Old Bailey, and it was nothing to do with the band whatsoever.
It wasn't a publicity stunt. How can anybody suggest it was? You know, Wilson started legal proceedings. We did it as a cartoon, remember that? It's a cartoon. It wasn't intended to be anything but that, you know.
Were you in court this morning to hear the case?
Yeah. Well, no. We went to court, but we were late getting there, so it was all over when we got there.
What happened by the time we got there?
About 25 to 11.
So you missed Mr. Quinton Hogg's address to the judge?
We let him down. Quinton who?
We'll never see the money, so I don't think we'll miss it.
We really suffered because, I mean, Tony Secunda didn't have to pay anything, you know, against the judgment, and but we lost all our royalties. And I lost more than anybody else because I wrote it. I lost my songwriting royalties as well.
Watching flowers in the rain.
Secunda's stunt left the Move feeling used and somewhat poorer, but they were still a top-class act. The Moody Blues, by contrast, had almost completely disappeared from view. Justin Hayward and John Lodge had taken the place of Denny Lane and Clint Warwick, and the band had been reduced to playing the scampi in a basket circuit for £25 a night.
There was one night when I started to blub in the dressing room. We'd just been away from home, and well, it's not as if, you know, we go to Japan or Australia nowadays. I mean, how far away that is. It was only in Newcastle, but it was the whole environment of it all that was so kind of depressing and soul-destroying, and people having steak and chips while you were trying to play seriously. And, I don't know, it just all got to me, and I had a little sort of blub in the dressing room one night, and Ray came over and put his arm, he said, "Oh, don't worry, mate, we're going home like Saturday night, Sunday morning." And then he started to blub, and I was trying to console him, and then on the way home that night, there's a couple of things happened, and we just said, "Listen, this is just crap, you know. We've got to change. We've got to kind of let go of what people thought the Moody's was before." Decca, the record company, had asked us to make a cheap budget price record to demonstrate stereo for rock and roll. We said, fine, yes, we'll do it. They wanted us to do a rock version of Dvorak at the New World Symphony. And we said, yes, we'll do that if we can just have like a couple of days in the studio on our own. And of course we just whipped in the studio and recorded all our stage show that we were already doing, which included Nights in White Satin and a song called Dawn Is a Feeling that Mike had written, and this whole sort of story of day in the life of one guy.
Nights in white satin, never reaching the end. Letters I've written, never meaning to send. Beauty I'd always missed with these eyes before. Just what the truth is, I can't say anymore, 'cause I love you. Yes, I love you.
The rest is history. The Moody Blues became one of the biggest selling rock groups of all time on the strength of a budget stereo demonstration LP.
Gazing at people, some hand in hand.
After more than 2 years together, cracks were beginning to appear in the Move. Guitarist Ace Kefford was the first casualty.
He went very strange for a while. He went paranoid, I think. It was a two-way thing. He'd get in the car and nobody'd speak. You know, he'd go for like all the way to the gig, and he'd be talking to himself, you know. Oh, they're not, you know, like, they're not talking to me again today. And everybody's going, he's going balmy, you know. But it's like, just pressure, I think. Then one day at rehearsals, we just stood up and threw his guitar at the wall and walked out. And he went home and he slashed his wrists. And that was when he left the band.
After his dramatic exit, Ace went off to form his own group. The Move carried on as a foursome, but things didn't get any better. Trevor became more and more fed up with the music he was playing.
Suddenly I'd found like the three kings, you know, Albert King, Freddie King and B.B. King, and I was listening, you know, starting to listen to that, and then I was listening, you know, to Sonny Boy Williamson and Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters, and you know, how can you listen to that stuff and go back and play Flowers in the Rain every night? You know, I couldn't do it.
Trevor Burton left when Blackberry Way was #1 because he said it was too pop for him.
Goodbye, Blackberry Way. I can see you, I don't need you. Goodbye, Blackberry Way. Should you want me back another day?
In fact, him and I had a real fight on stage. We were playing a song on stage, and Trevor hated Blackberry Way. His head was down. He was snarling all night. Hate this crap. And he sort of came over to me and went, "You're playing it fucking wrong." I went, "What?"
Goodbye, Blackberry Way.
I made a grab for him. He ran off. I started throwing things at him. Like I was picking up like my hi-hat and slinging it at him. And I was throwing sticks at him. And then I chased him off the stage. I got hold of him. And this has been building up for some time now. And I was actually trying to strangle him at this one stage. This was in the wings of the theatre. Meanwhile, there's only Roy Wood and Carl Wayne left. And there's Woody playing and Carl trying to sing.
Just like myself, they are neglected. Turn with my eyes to the wall.
Carl could spot that I was about to kill him. So Carl then he ran off the stage and started dragging me off Trevor. There's only left Woody on stage and he was sort of playing on his own, looking all bewildered by it all, and the curtains closed. Another riot ensued because we'd gone off stage, you know. And at this stage, while I was trying to beat the hell out of Trevor, it was at this point that he announced he was leaving the band, you know, which is probably a good idea, really. So actually we got through the rest of that tour because the fact that he was leaving, we said, "Oh, that's a good idea, you know, you go," you know. So he left because he thought the band was too pop. And he could have been right, actually.
Trevor, at a loose end, joined up with an old Birmingham acquaintance, Steve Gibbons. Steve was the frontman in the Uglies, a band which had been going since the early 60s. They had a strong local following, but had never had a hit record. One by one, members of the Uglies drifted away, leaving Steve and Trevor as the nucleus for a new band, the aptly named Balls.
And Denny Lane appeared, you know, I was up in London recording some stuff, and there's Denny Lane. I hadn't seen him for years. He'd been out in Spain, turned up, just sitting there with his suntan. "What you doing?" "Nothing." "Well, come down the farm, you know." And then he was in Balls.
If you were a progressive rock band in 1969, it was almost obligatory to head off into the country to get your act together. Balls decamped to the New Forest.
Why don't we all just go and live in the mountains, high above the sea?
We'd be rehearsing, you know, at 5 in the morning in a barn. There wasn't houses directly around, but, you know, 2 miles away there were houses, and, you know, at 3 in the morning in the country, sound tends to carry. So, you know, we'd get like the local constabulary would be around there, you know, 2 or 3 times a week.
We spent months in the studio and only one track ever came out. We were too busy having a good time. We never made it. Well, there's music still there in Olympic vaults somewhere from Balls, you know, but I don't know what it would sound like now.
There's a lot of drugs about, you know. I'm not saying within the band so much, but in the producers and whatnot, you know. There's a sort of, "Hey man, yeah, let's try this." It was costing a lot of dough to record when people were like taking so long and getting stoned, you know, and just trying things all the time. But somebody had to pay for that.
You know, it weren't until like the party was over and like you hit the brick wall, and realisation comes that what we've been doing for the last 2 years. You know, what did we do? I'm still not sure.
And that was the end of Balls. In the move, Rick Price had replaced Trevor Burton. The band ventured out on a disastrous cabaret tour, which led to Carl Wayne quitting. Roy Wood invited his old friend Jeff Lynne to join, but Jeff had his own band, the Idle Race, who throughout the late 60s had been heavily tipped for success. A success that never seemed to arrive.
I always say the pats on the back were killing us, you know, it was, oh, you're going to make it, you're going to, so good, great, and you could sort of almost see Jeff physically collapsing in underneath it, you know. I thought maybe I don't know how to write a hit record, you know, or something. Maybe there's something that I don't know, there's like some secret that I haven't learnt yet.
In the end, Jeff felt that he had gone about as far as he could with the Idle Race. He left and joined the Move, but almost immediately he and Roy began plotting the birth of a new group, the Electric Light Orchestra.
I'd recently bought a Chinese cello, and it sounded great, actually. It was real cheap. And I was messing about just for a laugh, you know. I was in the control room, and the backing track was playing to 10538. And I was playing all these Jimi Hendrix riffs on the cello, you know, and Jeff said, oh, I like the sound of that. And I went in and did about 15 of them, and that's how ELO was born, really. Before we could actually even get going, I think we must have gone through about 9 sets of string players.
What were their problems?
Crap, basically. They found out who me and Jeff were. We were part of the Move, and you had all sorts of people coming along, you know, like jugglers and, you know, people who couldn't play at all, just purely because they wanted to be a rock and roll star.
Around this time, Denny Lane, Steve Gibbons and Trevor Burton were each in search of work after the breakup of Balls. Trevor had moved to London to do session work, but earning a living was the least of his problems.
Well, I was in a bad way, you know. I'd gone into heroin. And this was through, like, American musicians, I think, coming over, who were, like, saying, well, you know, don't snort that, but try it this way, man, you know. I won't mention names, but that's where it started. You know, be really cool, man, you know, take this, man, you like this. Yeah, and he started slipping into that. And I got a habit, you know, and it was Secunda again. He came round the flat to my basement and he said, Trevor, go home, else you're going to die. And he gave me 100 quid. He said, go home, else you're going to die. And I came back to Birmingham, to my mother's house, and cured myself, and got off it, and started again.
Steve Gibbons was held in a restrictive contract by an ex-manager, but eventually managed to break free and form his own band. Denny Lane had been kicking his heels until he had a phone call from Paul McCartney. An offer to play in Paul's band Wings seemed too good to turn down, despite reservations on Denny's part.
Amongst ourselves, I wouldn't be secondary, but I knew in the public eye, you know, I'd have to take a second seat, and I didn't like that at all. He was a much bigger star in a sense, and it's not jealousy's got nothing to do with it. It's to do with, you know, having a sort of an equal say in everything. But, you know, he was pretty good to me in that sense, that he tried to encourage me, you know, to the fore a little bit, but the public wouldn't let you see. So I knew all this when I started. I knew there were going to be those kind of problems. But of course, you know, I saw it as being a challenge, a sort of way of making some dough because I was broke.
Electric Light Orchestra had not been in existence long, and already personal differences were causing problems. Two former friends, Roy Wood and Jeff Lynne, found working together more difficult than they'd thought.
They both wanted to go on stage last. Well, I didn't care. We used to put the rest of the band on first, then I'd go on. And then he supposed, you know, well, the three of us should have gone on together, but I'd go on. And then it was like Jeff and Roy sort of pushing each other on. They wanted, the last one on was going to be, was the leader of the band. And it was never going to work as having a dual leadership thing.
I suppose we were young and foolish at the time and couldn't see the wood for the trees, so to speak, I mean, I think if the time was over again, I would have been more tolerant towards him and he probably would have been towards me.
I think it was probably best that we went our own ways, because it was, I think we were too much for each other, really. Nobody would ever back down, it was, oh no, I want one of them. Well, in that case, I want one of these. And it was nice, though. It was good-natured banter, but, it was, it had to really come to an end, because I think we both did want different things.
Roy left to form Wizzard, teaming up with ex-Move colleague Rick Price. While ELO struggled to carry on, Wizzard enjoyed almost instant chart success.
It would have been pointless forming another ELO because we were always been battling against each other and nobody would have got anywhere. So I did an out-and-out rock and roll thing, and I thought, what can you do? You could do with like two drummers and a couple of cellists and all that. And I thought, we advertised for two sax players, which is Nick Pentelow and Mike Burney came along, and I thought, well, what can you do with that sound? And I immediately thought of Phil Spector, with saxes, loads of big drums, cellos, everything going. We got to a point where we were almost resident on top of the pops, and we wanted to try and be as different as possible to everybody else. Hence the gorilla suits and the ballet dresses, and we just went on and took the mick out of it all, really. The band used to turn up to the dressing room at top of the pops. The saxophone players used to be hiding around the corner, worried about what they got to wear, on the night.
In 1973 saw Wizzard with 2 number ones and a Christmas hit record. But the amount of time and money spent creating each single was causing tensions within the band.
We would spend weeks just doing a single, whereas most people would spend weeks doing an album. Singles were being made for like 4,000 quid. And we'd spend 5 times that just making this bloody thing. But I mean, we knew it was a hit. What's the point of that if you can never make the money back? We were all dancing around because we knew it was a hit before we released it. We didn't dance around very much when we knew how much we'd spent making it.
Back in ELO, Jeff Lynne and Bev Bevan had recruited a new lineup after Roy's departure. Jeff was determined to carry on with the original idea behind the Electric Light Orchestra.
My brain was more of a producer's brain already by then. I was starting to think that way rather than thinking of how good can I make the guitar parts. I'd already sort of Okay, the guitar part will take care of itself. It's just like G, E minor, F, you know, whatever. And so I wanted to hear what it was like to be in this environment, you know. Oh, I'll sing in this environment. It's like, you got like the army behind you, you know, like, I suppose it was, because I could, I suppose, you know.
Having achieved the blend of strings and rock music he was looking for, Jeff Lynne wrote a string of hit records throughout the 70s.
Sailing away on the crest of a wave, it's like magic. Oh, rolling and riding and slipping and sliding, it's magic. And you and your sweet desire, you took me. Oh, higher and higher, baby. There's a hole in my head where the rain comes in. You took my body and break it in. High, high, woman, so crying shame, 'cause you ain't got nobody else to blame. Evil woman, evil woman, evil woman, evil woman. Oh, Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong? Hey there, Mr. Blue, we're so pleased to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at you. Hey there, Mr. Blue, we're so pleased to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at you.
By now, ELO's success far outstripped that of Wizzard. Both bands shared the same management, but according to Roy Wood, they were not given equal treatment.
ELO then were starting to break out to do more stuff in America, and Don Arden was concentrating more on that really, and to the detriment of Wizzard, I thought, at the time. And because I was the only person that was on the contract, that some of the band weren't getting paid and stuff, and it was one of them, you got a record in the charts and can't afford to pay your mortgage, you know, and they all got a bit fed up with it and started to drift off and do other things.
It was actually just me and the old chap at the end, hanging on for grim death. I was managed by a guy called Larry Mansfield, and he was also a manager of Peters and Lee. And he rang me up one day and said, "I've got this job for you if you want it." And I said, "Oh, what is it?" He said, "Well, it's tour manager to Peters and Lee." And I just burst out laughing on the phone because, like, they were so square, you know, and I got hair down there, all about 20 different colours. And I said, "Peters and Lee, are you kidding?" I said, no, leave it. And I put the phone down and thought about it for less than an hour and rung him back and said I'd take it, because then, you know, it had occurred to me that I could then pay the mortgage and stay in the house that I was in. And so that's what I did, and that was the end of me playing on the road as, you know, for a living, really.
I was disillusioned with it all, you know, and I didn't want to play on stage anymore then, and maybe I should have done. And probably if things had been a bit different, I might have stayed with ELO a bit longer than I did. I don't think I would have stayed to the end, but, you know, I would have stayed a bit longer.
Wizzard folded and Roy Wood began a solo career. The Steve Gibbons Band, which by now included Trevor Burton on bass, had earned a reputation as a strong live act. Eventually, on the recommendation of Pete Townsend of The Who, they got a record deal. 15 years on from when he had started in the Uglies, Steve Gibbons finally had a hit record.
had the hit, and we did a gig with Steel Pulse in Cannon Hill Park, and I walked in and I saw Robin Valk, who is at BRMB Radio, and he said, "Oh, hello, how's it feel to be a pop star?" You know, well, that's a change of attitude, isn't it? You know, it's like, well, it's a natural response, I suppose, because something has changed drastically in their eyes. It doesn't, you know, the world still looks the same to you, but there is a weird shift that goes on with success, I think, and it's imperceptible, but it does occur even with friends, you know.
I mean, touring with The Who was incredible. You know, we did a European tour and then we did an American tour, coast to coast. And the smallest gigs were like, 15,000 people. Then come back and then record companies pulled out, they didn't back it up. You know, I think it's probably because it fell just at the wrong time for Steve. Because like the Pistols were bursting in 76. 77, just as we were supposed to break, that broke and just washed through it all.
Trevor left the band in 1986 to start his own group. Another long-term relationship came to an end when Denny Laine left Wings. What sparked it off was a drugs bust in Tokyo.
Customs officials say that McCartney behaved oddly and they searched his luggage. Inside, amongst his clothes, they allege they found nearly half a pound of marijuana.
We couldn't work there again for years. We couldn't get visas anywhere in the world to go out and tour again. So that, in a sense, is the main reason that I left. But the other reason was the fact that I felt like, I couldn't go any further than what I was doing. And in that sense, yeah, he did overshadow me, in that sense. Not that I, dislike him for it. I mean, it's just that I used to do my own thing more before, and I just felt that, I was kind of wasting myself a bit. I even got to the point where, as the music was suffering, I couldn't tune a guitar at one point.
By the early 80s, Jeff Lynne had had enough of ELO, a decision that caused a split between him and Bev Bevan.
I had a contract where I had to deliver so many albums to the end of ELO, right? And when I finished the last one, I realised that that's it and I could disband it, and I'm not being sort of nasty or anything, but yeah, I'd had enough by then, yeah. It was a constant thing of doing the same thing over and over, which is something I've never been fond of doing. Like sitting out on a tour and doing it for 4 months, wherever it was, and then finishing it, and there's just, I can't think of tunes when I'm on the road or anything like that, So I'd rather be doing tunes.
This is where the rift between Jeff and I sort of started, really, because I wanted to carry on, and so did some of the other guys, all the other guys in the band, with the possible exception of Richard Tandy, but certainly everybody else. They wanted, yeah, this is great, let's tour some more, And he didn't want to know about ELO. And he wasn't really keen on me taking out ELO and calling it ELO. And I felt a bit strange about doing that anyway. Because I thought, people will expect Jeff to be there. And that's when we came up with Electric Light Orchestra Part 2.
Jeff turned his back on the road and began a highly successful career as a producer. And while working with George Harrison, began toying with the idea of a rather unusual band.
Well, it's all right, riding around in the breeze.
At night, we'd have a few, thingies, drinkies and stuff. And we'd have these really daft ideas about making this group, with people that we really like, that we'd love to have in our group. And it was, George says, well, yeah, I'll have Bob Dylan. I said, well, I'll have Roy Orbison.
I'm so tired of being lonely. I still have some love to give. Won't you show me that you really care? Everybody got somebody to lean next to mine. Dream on. I've been uptight and made a mess, but I'll clean it up myself, I guess. Oh, the sweet smell of success, handle me with care.
Every time we meet, baby, as we walk down the street, baby, the people stop and stare. They see two lovers, they're holding hands.
Paul and Ringo and George were playing lovely tunes from the window of the room.
Some try to tell me thoughts they cannot defend. Just what you want to be. My baby died. See my baby died. She hangs on to me and she really goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. See my baby.
Blackberry way, I can see you, I don't need you. Goodbye, black telephone line. Give me some time, I'm living in twilight. Oh, man, can I tell you, swallow some perfume? Tell you need it quick, so heavy, have to testify. You've been sick all day, and that's a perfect alibi. Go ahead on, too late. He can't catch up with you, go too late. He ain't man enough for you, go too late. Use all the speed you got, go too late.
We've already said goodbye. Since you gotta go, oh, you better go now.
This is like having your passport photo done. This is. When's the green light gonna go?
We've already said so long. I don't wanna see you go. Oh, you better go now. Go now. Go now. Go now. Don't you even try.
Next week, distinct shades of deep purple settle on the rock family tree,